Have you ever noticed that some people change how you feel before they have even spoken? You walk into a room, and before a single conversation begins, something inside you relaxes. Your breathing slows, and your shoulders soften. There's no effort to impress, no pressure to perform, and no need to explain yourself. You simply feel more like yourself in their presence. Then there are other moments that feel almost impossible to explain. Nothing obvious has happened. The person has been perfectly polite. Their words are reasonable, yet your body quietly prepares for something. Your breathing becomes shallower, your thoughts begin moving faster. You become more careful about what you say. You find yourself trying to say the right thing or searching for the right version of yourself to present. Most of us assume these reactions are caused by personality. We tell ourselves that some people are simply easy to be around while others are difficult. But perhaps your body has always been responding to something much deeper than personality. Perhaps it has never been listening primarily to words. Perhaps long before your conscious mind begins interpreting the conversation, your nervous system has already recognized the state of the nervous system standing in front of you. And perhaps this silent conversation has been shaping every relationship you've ever had without you even knowing it. From the moment we are born, we are taught that communication happens through words. If we want to be understood, we must explain ourselves clearly. If we want to help someone, we offer advice. If we want to influence others, we learn better arguments, stronger reasoning, or more persuasive ways of speaking. It seems obvious that information is what changes people, but the body has always been participating in a very different conversation. Long before the mind begins interpreting language, the nervous system has already started listening. Not to your opinions, not to your explanations, but to your state. Every nervous system is continuously asking questions that rarely reach conscious awareness. Am I safe here? Do I need to protect myself? Can I relax? Is this someone I must defend against or someone I can soften with? These questions are answered almost instantly, not through logic, but through signals the body has been reading its entire life. The tone of someone's voice, the rhythm of their speech, the pace of their movements, the tension in their face, the steadiness of their breathing, the amount of ease or effort present in their body. Before a sentence has even been understood, your nervous system has already begun organizing itself around what it perceives. This is why two people can say exactly the same words yet leave completely different impressions. One person's reassurance genuinely settles you. Another's reassurance somehow makes you even more anxious. The difference is not found in the words themselves. It is found in the state from which those words arise. The body is remarkably sensitive to coherence. It recognizes when someone's outward behavior is trying to appear calm, while their nervous system remains organized around fear. It also recognizes when someone has nothing to prove, nothing to defend, and nothing to hide. That recognition cannot always be explained, but it can be felt. This is why defensiveness often creates more defensiveness. An anxious nervous system unconsciously invites other nervous systems to become vigilant. A pressured body often creates pressure in those around it. A dysregulated system quietly teaches dysregulation, not because anyone intends it, simply because nervous systems are always communicating. The opposite is equally true. When someone remains deeply settled in themselves, something remarkable begins to happen. Without instruction, without technique, without trying to calm anyone, the space itself begins to feel different. Breathing naturally slows. Conversations lose their urgency. People speak more honestly. Silences no longer feel uncomfortable. The body gradually remembers that it does not need to stay on guard. This is what Chapter 8 calls resonance. Not a mystical ability, not a special gift, but the natural tendency of living nervous systems to orient toward coherence when coherence is genuinely present. Regulation, it turns out, is just as contagious as anxiety, perhaps even more so. And Perhaps this silent conversation has been shaping every relationship you've ever had without you even knowing it. It is not something we learn to perform. It is something life has been doing through us all along. Once you begin to see that communication happens beneath language, something else becomes impossible to ignore. Your nervous system does not simply affect your own experience. It quietly becomes part of everyone else's experience as well. This is true whether you realize it or not. Every relationship becomes shaped by the state you repeatedly embody. Parents are continuously regulating or dysregulating the nervous systems of their children. Leaders do the same with their teams. Partners do it with one another. Friends do it every time they meet. Even strangers passing briefly through each other's lives leave subtle physiological impressions that often go completely unnoticed. We tend to imagine that influence belongs to those who speak well, those with the best ideas, the strongest arguments, the greatest confidence. So we spend years trying to become more convincing, more knowledgeable, more articulate, more persuasive. We carefully choose our words. We rehearse conversations before they happen. We search for exactly the right explanation that will finally help someone understand. Yet if you think back to the people who have changed your life the most, it probably wasn't because they always had the perfect answer. It was because something about being with them felt different. You felt calmer, more honest, less defended, more able to think clearly. You did not leave simply remembering what they said. You left remembering how you felt while you were with them, because coherence communicates faster than concepts ever can. The nervous system recognizes congruence before the mind evaluates meaning. It senses when someone's words are attempting to create an impression. It also senses when no impression is being created at all. This is why genuine presence has such a quietly transformative quality. When the body is no longer organized around protecting an identity, others no longer feel they must protect theirs. Without anyone trying to make it happen, conversations begin to change. People stop measuring every sentence. They stop searching for approval. They stop performing versions of themselves. Instead, they begin speaking from somewhere simpler, more immediate, more real. Sometimes they suddenly discover an answer they have been searching for over months or even years. Not because you offered a brilliant insight, not because you solved their problem, but because your presence stopped reinforcing the conditions that had been keeping the problem alive. Without judgment to resist, without pressure to succeed, or without someone else's identity competing with their own, their nervous system simply had enough safety to reorganize itself. This is one of the quietest miracles of embodiment. Transformation rarely arrives as a dramatic breakthrough. More often, it looks almost ordinary. Someone takes a slow breath they didn't realize they were holding. Their shoulders gently lower. The tension around their eyes disappears. Their speech becomes slower. The urgency leaves their voice. The mind that moments before was trapped in confusion suddenly becomes clear without knowing exactly why. Nothing new was added. Something unnecessary simply fell away. This is why Chapter 8 describes co-regulation not as something we practice, but as something that naturally emerges when the body is no longer organized around separation. The absence of interference allows another nervous system to rediscover its own balance. Perhaps this is also why the deepest healing so often happens in silence. Not because silence possesses magical power, but because, in the presence of genuine coherence, the body no longer has to spend its energy defending itself. It can finally do what it has always wanted to do: release, reorganize, remember. Perhaps healing has depended less on finding better words and far more on becoming someone whose body no longer argues with reality. And when that happens, your greatest contribution is no longer what you know. It is the quality of presence through which life quietly meets everyone around you. At first, this understanding can be subtly misunderstood. If presence affects other people, the mind immediately asks a familiar question. How can I become more influential? How can I learn to transmit this? How can I create this effect more consistently? It is an understandable question, but it quietly returns us to the same pattern we have been exploring throughout this book. The mind hears about transmission and immediately turns it into another achievement, another ability to develop, another way of producing an outcome. But Chapter 8 points in the opposite direction. Transmission is not something you do. It is what remains when there is no longer someone inside trying to do it. The deepest shift is astonishingly simple. You stop trying to affect people. You stop trying to calm them. You stop trying to fix them. You stop trying to guide every conversation toward a particular outcome. You even stop trying to be seen as peaceful, wise, awakened, or spiritually present, because all of those efforts still organize the nervous system around performance. And performance, no matter how refined, is still a subtle form of self-protection. Instead, your attention quietly returns to something much simpler, not changing the other person, remaining fully available yourself. Again and again, you notice when your own body begins contracting. You notice the impulse to persuade, to impress, to rescue, to control how someone experiences you. And rather than following those impulses, you allow them to soften. Presence gradually replaces performance. Alignment quietly replaces strategy. Safety replaces persuasion. There is no longer a separate self trying to create a particular impression. There is simply openness meeting whatever is here. As this stabilizes, something profound begins to change. Your body no longer feels like a container carrying awareness inside it. It begins to feel more like a living field through which awareness naturally expresses itself. The boundary between me and my presence becomes less substantial. You are no longer manufacturing calm, you are living from it. Nothing extra has to be added. Nothing needs to be projected outward. Nothing has to be transmitted through effort. Coherence itself becomes the communication. And because there is no longer an intention to influence, influence begins happening naturally, not as persuasion, not as charisma, not as personal power, but as the quiet consequence of a nervous system no longer divided against itself. This is one of the great paradoxes of embodiment. The more you try to create an effect on other people, the less available you are to the present moment. The more completely you rest in the present moment, the more your presence quietly becomes an invitation for others to do the same. Not because you asked them to, not because you taught them to, but because life, meeting no resistance within you, is finally free to express itself through you. Perhaps this is what the body has been becoming all along. Not a better performer, not a more convincing teacher, not a more influential person, but a transparent expression of awareness itself, where coherence no longer belongs to you, but simply moves through you, naturally touching whatever it meets. Perhaps your greatest contribution has never been your ideas. Perhaps it has never been the insights you gathered, the advice you offered, or the explanations you carefully learned to give. Perhaps what has touched people most deeply has always been something much quieter, the quality of nervous system from which those words emerged. Think about the people who have stayed with you throughout your life. You may remember some of what they said, but what often remains even more vividly is how you felt in their presence. How easily you breathed, how completely you could stop pretending, how safe it felt to simply be who you were. Perhaps that was always the real conversation. Not the one spoken through language, but the one spoken through being. And perhaps this is what the body has been learning all along, not merely how to carry awareness, not merely how to become calmer, wiser, or more peaceful, but how to become a living field in which awareness quietly recognizes itself. A place where nothing needs to be defended, nothing needs to be proven, nothing needs to be achieved before life can be fully here. There may be far less you need to do than you once believed. Far less to fix, far less to persuade, far less to become. Perhaps your deepest work has never been learning how to change the people around you. Perhaps it has simply been allowing your own resistance to dissolve, one moment at a time. because every layer of defense that falls away leaves a little more room for life to move freely. A little more room for truth to express itself without effort. A little more room for others to remember the same openness within themselves. And perhaps that is the quiet miracle of embodiment. You no longer enter each moment wondering what you should say. You enter wondering how completely you can remain present. Because when nothing inside you is resisting life, your presence begins speaking long before your words ever arrive. And sometimes that silent conversation is the one that changes everything.